Hi there and welcome back to my channel. In today's video we'll be travelling all over the UK to explore the UK's best board game cafes. These are in no particular order and one's not better than the other, but I want to know why these cafes are doing so well and what they're bringing to the table. When lockdown hit, it devastated some of the board game cafes here in the UK, but others survived. I want to know what they were doing differently, what they were bringing to the table, so I can bring some hope to the board game community here in Runcorn. So to start with, we're heading to the north of England to one of the biggest board game cafes in the UK. This guy is one of the most notable people in the industry, and if you don't know him yet, you really need to, and you're about ready. Check out this video. Okay, I am outside Fanboy 3 in Manchester. This place needs no introduction. It's one of the biggest stores in the UK. Let me show you inside.
My name is Dave Salisbury. I run Fanboy 3 in Manchester. We won a global award for organised play in 2015, the Power Retailer Award by GAMA, the governing body of the games industry. I don't really like to talk about it that much, so I just throw it in there. We're a full service game store, so essentially we've got pretty much most of the games you've heard of and a lot of games that you don't. I've got about 5,000 board games in stock at any one moment in time. We have like a smattering of miniature stuff, and then we do a lot of card game events. Most of the time we open at noon because gamers are lazy and want to stay in bed as long as possible, and then we stay open until 10 o'clock at night because gamers like to party like it's 1983 and D&D has just been released. Advanced D&D has just been released. From this next weekend we're reopening the cafe, like in part more for we've been doing hot drinks, but no hot drinks. We're doing milkshakes, hot drinks, tuck shop food. You know, essentially it's like we've got sort of sweets and crisps. Theoretical capacity downstairs of about 80 instead of like 120. The space is bookable all day, every day for people to just come in and play board games. And we only charge £3 per player, and we give that back to you in store credit if you're using the board game library. So you can come in and play a board game and then decide that you liked it and then you can buy it. If a nice couple comes in, we can always find them a table. So Dave's place, Fanboy 3, has been a nationwide hit. It's a huge venue with an incredible sized game library, but it's not just the size of the place that's important, we need to see more. The things that are important to me for a board game cafe is really the atmosphere, not strictly unlimited amounts of service, not strictly the food, not strictly the drinks that they provide, although those things are nice, but it's the atmosphere and the community that's built in those locations that is the important thing. It's how people interact with each other, and that's the key thing to a really, really good board game cafe in my opinion. So today we are in Chester. This is Cups, Coffee and Board Games. It's right round the back, so you may not even notice it if you're just walking through, but it's definitely one you should check out. It's one of my favourites and one of the most comfy. Let me show you inside.
My name is Ben and I am the store manager in Chester. We are a coffee and board game shop, and I keep it pretty separate, so if you want to come in and sit downstairs you can just chill with a coffee, cake, food, or you can go upstairs to our board game where we have a library of about 150-ish games for you to choose from. It doesn't matter if you are someone who is really into your board games, you want to play the heavy things, Gloomhaven and Scythe, or if you've never played board games before and you just want to go somewhere a little bit different and chill and have that interaction with your friends or family that's not with just a screen in front of your face and all technology. We can get 14 people upstairs-ish, give or take, and people sat downstairs because we keep it quite separate between the two. We serve the best coffee in Chester. So we do your usual, your lattes, your cappuccinos, your flat whites, Americanos. We also have a great range of new summer drinks. So we have, my favourite is the Dragon Fruit Cooler, which is like a slushie. It's dragon fruit and mango flavoured. It's a perfect balance between sweet and tart. And we have a fantastic range of cakes, including vegan and gluten-free options. And we do sandwiches and snacks like crisps and chocolate bars. We are open Monday to Saturday from 10 AM until 5 PM. And on Sunday we're open from 10 AM until 4 PM.
Honestly, Ben's place absolutely nails it, and he really does have the best coffee in Chester. Highly, highly recommend. One of the things that Ben does really well is the welcome that you get when you get to the venue. The moment that you step in the door, you feel welcome and part of the family. I'd highly recommend visiting there. The next cafe we're going to go to is buzzing with personality, and they've got a wide variety of staff that are only too happy to serve, teach you new games and bring you on board. So just going along the M40 now, and we're about to arrive at the next board game cafe. So we are now in Oxford at the Thirsty Meeples. Let me show you inside.
My name is Miriam, I'm a game guru. During the week we open at 11 and we'll close around 10 or 11. Weekends it's 9 on a Saturday, 10 on a Sunday that we open, and then, yeah, again, just sort of till late. We're a really lovely thing that people discover when they move to Oxford and they find out that this exists, and then it's a way that place that they can bring friends who visit. It's a place for people to kind of like discover the hobby and get more involved with, you know, the sort of board game and general like gaming and geek community in Oxford. We give people recommendations based on what kinds of things they enjoy, and we teach people games. We have the shop, which, you know, obviously only has so much capacity, especially with social distancing, and we have a hugely varied menu for everything, like hot food, sandwiches, cocktails, milkshakes, smoothies, beers and ciders, sweets and snacks, quite a lot of stuff.
I absolutely love those guys in Oxford. If I lived in Oxford, I would go to that place so much more often. They're all really, really super friendly and just great people in general. Okay, so the next place we're going to is in London. It's another one of the biggest board game cafes. What's particularly notable about this one is their approach to how they lay out the games as you walk through the store. Check out this video. So next up, we've got the Ludo Quest in Croydon.
I'm Nick Smith. I'm co-owner with Carrie Smith of the Ludo Quest. We've got 1,500 games, which are arranged kind of in a voyage of discovery. So your absolutely standard Monopolies and Scrabbles are right at the front. And as you go further into the room, it becomes slightly more complex and niche as you go further in. It's £6 to play per person during peak hours, half price during the day, during the week essentially, and half price again for 14-year-olds. So for under 14, so if a 12-year-old comes during the day, it's only £1.50 to play. We provide food and drink. So food, we provide full meals. So we do pizza, we do curry, we do paninis. We have a wide range of craft beers, of coffee, of smoothies, of shakes, cocktails, pretty much anything you could want drink-wise. We open at 11 o'clock each morning, and we close at 10 o'clock during the week, 11 o'clock at the weekend, 9 o'clock on a Sunday. Anyone who plays a game is a gamer. And that doesn't matter whether it's Ludo, whether it's Go, whether it's chess, whether it's Trivial Pursuit, Monopoly or Terra Mystica. Our ambition here and what we see on a daily basis is that you can have people playing Cluedo right next to Gaia Project.
So Nick's place, the Ludo Quest, and Dave's place in Manchester, Fanboy Free, have been established for quite some time, so it's not any surprise that they survived lockdown. But I want to know how some of the newer cafes survived and what they did. So to find out, we're now going down to the south coast of the UK. So it's a nice day, the sun is shining. I am on the south coast of the UK in a place called Worthing. We're going to check out the Dice Board Game Lounge.
My name's Kirk, I am the General Manager here at Dice. So we actually set our own groups up on social media. Where we connect people together, we encourage them to come in as groups, play together, and yeah, we generally put people in that are like-minded into separate groups. So we've got a Dungeons and Dragons group, we've got a Magic the Gathering group on Facebook. Floor space, we've got 2 floors. We have the upstairs and the downstairs. Upstairs is about 20 to 30 covers, downstairs is about the same. We are a board game lounge, so we offer a full range of alcoholic drinks. We have a cocktail menu. We have a craft beer. Obviously we have craft beer that is specially made for us by one of our friends at the brewery, Phantom Brewing. We have sourdough toasties, we do quesadillas. We've also added nachos onto a special at the moment as well, so we add and do special options. Our opening closing times, Tuesday through Friday is 12 till 10 p.m. Then Saturdays is 11 till 10, and then Sunday 11 till 5 p.m.
So the Board Game Lounge definitely had a more upmarket feel than I was used to for a board game cafe. It's the kind of place I can imagine going for a business meeting and then a bit of a social shindig afterwards. Perfect. So the next place I'm going to is a lesser known place, perhaps mainly because it's not in a big city. So I'm just heading to the next board game cafe and driving through Brighton, and I've noticed a board game cafe in my old stomping ground. And as I've got a copy of my own game, Influencer, with me, I'm going to take it in there and see if I can pitch it to them. So I better pop a shirt on to look a little bit more professional and see if they like the game. Hopefully they do. Take Influence over there and I'll see you in a minute. So I've come down to Dice Saloon in Brighton. So here we are, I'll go in and I'll show you around. So straight away, as soon as you go through the door, you notice it's a big space. In the front of the store, you've got the big shop and it has a massive array of games. It's so colourful, and obviously the newer ones that people know at the front. In the back, you've got a huge table space, loads of room to get games set up, and it's just a wonderful store all round. Obviously, I couldn't resist the urge to introduce Influencer, and I pitched the idea to the guy in the store. He gave me some really great feedback on releasing the game and the current game climate. So the Dice Saloon in Brighton is a fantastic example of how a lesser known place can have a huge impact. It was an impressive venue with a sizable range of games available to buy. One other lesser known place is in a place called Burgess Hill, mainly because it's not a big city, but Chris clearly has a heart for his community. Next up, we've got Burgess Hill with Dice and Drinks.
I'm Chris Marshall and I run Dice and Drinks. There was never anything like this when I was growing up, so that's one of the drives for me to do this. Is that it's a place that people can come together and they can enjoy each other's company and play some games. So we do teas, coffees, cakes and snacks as any sort of little cafe. We also have, as you might notice, BoardGame library. We deal with a lot of miniatures as well. We have TCGs played here too. So yeah, we can 3D print pretty much anything. A lot of the scenery we use for our 40k and other sort of miniature gaming tournaments, we 3D printed the majority of the terrain for that. The big tables could turn into board gaming tables. You can get 6 people around them instead of just 2, if people want to play board games instead of that. We just like people to have fun and play games.
There's 3 reasons why I want to know what the best board game cafe is and what makes a great board game cafe. 1, I'm a consumer. I want to go and buy games and I want to go and play them. Number 2, I'm a board game developer, so I want to make links with people and promote my own game, get it out there into the community and look at the pitfalls of why some work and some don't, what to consider when developing my game. And number 3, it's my dream to develop my own board game cafe. Now, as a consumer, you can pretty much see everything you need to know. The things that are important to you personally, you can work out from the videos. As a board game designer, now this is the bit that was really important to me, obviously with my own game and releasing that. I needed to know what was important in terms of pricing, in terms of packaging, all these different aspects to my game with regards to the board game cafe, how many units they want to stock, how long they hold it for, all these big questions, and it gave me a really good opportunity to talk these through. So I just want to go through a couple of those points with you now to help you with your own games and your own game development. So one of the big things that came up for me was pricing. Now, what I noticed a lot of these guys discussing was particularly in terms of how quickly there's a turnover of games, and when new games are released, they want to get those new games in and they need space in their store for those. Now, there's so many games on the game market that it's quite saturated, and so games that constantly sell will constantly get restocked and there's no issue there. But particularly for someone like me as a new game designer, or if you've only got a few games out and you haven't built your community really big, and you haven't got a big following, you're still growing that, there's going to be some issues with how quickly that can turn over. And for the board game cafes, that can be a problem with space. So the size of your box is really important, because the more space you take up, the more they're going to need, the quicker they're going to need to get it off the shelf to make space for the new games. So I asked how long typically is the window for keeping a game on the shelf as it is, and how quick do you need to get it round, and typically the average time is about 90 days. So you've got a 90-day window to get however many units to the shop, for them to sell it, and then for them to restock. Now, the problem comes is after those 90 days, what happens if they can't sell it? So what they tend to do to make space is bring the sale price, bring the price down, put it on sale so they can shift it and make space. This causes 2 problems for the game designer and also for the consumer and for the cafe and so on. So the problems that happen is once they bring the sale price down, every time someone goes in to buy your game into any shop, the first thing most people do, like myself, we go online, put in the name of the game and get reviews and prices that it's selling for to see if you can get it anywhere any cheaper. We're all trying to save money. And the problem there is if it sells cheaper somewhere else, 9 times out of 10, people just won't buy it there. They'll wait and go back and buy it online because they can get it cheaper. Sometimes they won't, but it depends on the price difference and how much they're really going to be saving. And so if your game is priced at say £60 and then they can find it somewhere else for £40, the chances are they're probably going to get it somewhere else. If your game is priced at £10 and they can get it somewhere else at £9, it's a pound difference. They probably won't make any difference and buy it in store. So these are things to consider: is what your price bracket's going to be, and coupled with how big your box is. Now, obviously, if your box is a lot smaller, they're not going to need to shift it so quickly to make that space. So if you make your box smaller, it's going to be less likely to go on sale and bring that price down. The other problem that you find when the price comes down is when the price comes down, people see it online, they don't buy it. The board game cafes then can't sell it. When you get to do your second run of games, you've made your new batch, you go back to all these board game cafes that have stocked it previously, say, hey, do you want some more copies? We can't sell it. Sorry, we can't stock it. And your board game's dead in the water unless you bring your prices down. So your price bracket, your margin of what you're making comes down, and if that's low already, it's coming down even further. The problem is when it comes down so far that you simply can't, it'll cost you more money to make it, and so the board games, the games die and they never come back. And apparently this is really, really common, is when games that, sellers and publishers put it online, put it up for sale, and you can't even make it for that price. They're just trying to shift it because they've got to make more space. So really give some thought to how much you're going to price it at. So it's my thinking with my own game to scale the box down as much as possible. At the moment, the box is this size. If I look at other games, say Love Letter, that's obviously a little bit smaller, so we could make it smaller again. I've also had other ideas of, say for example, things like this. So this is Gloom. So Gloom have just got a small little packet like this. It hangs on one of those Euro hooks. That will get posted in the letterbox, so for postage it brings the cost down, and it doesn't take up a lot of space. I mean, you could stack 10 to 20 of those in a little box on a countertop. For a pretty, not taking up much space. So if I bring that down, the cost price comes down because I'm not using as much material, and I can bring the price of the product down, so we can set it at a low price straight away, which also means it's easier if you've got new people coming into the shop. This was one of the things that Nick highlighted. When you come into the shop and you've got a budget, or even if you're just coming in to explore, if there's something at a low price, it sells a lot quicker. People are more than prepared to explore it because what they're spending isn't a lot of money, and what they're getting in return, if your game's particularly good, is a great game. So they're worth thinking about. That's certainly what I've found anyway, from a game design perspective. But what if you are wanting to set up your own board game cafe? What is the common thread around these cafes that have kept them going? So one of the big things is obviously their social media presence. So places like the Board Game Lounge in Worthing, being a new establishment, a new location, their social media presence, they did really, really well. And this is what I think has helped them through lockdown, through difficult times, keeping them going. It's obvious, it's a no-brainer, and a lot of these board game cafes done the same thing as well. Unless you're a big establishment, you've got a big following, you don't need to rely on that quite so much. But even in those cases, they still have a great social media presence with their events and things. So like Fanboy Free, for example, I've got putting all kinds of different events and stuff. Well, most of the board game cafes do. So that's a big one, is the social media presence. The second thing that was clear to me is offering coffees and snacks and foods, and think about your audience and what these game cafes do, their particular locations and what they do. They really understand their customer and what their customer wants. So Fanboy Free, for example, they've got snacks and drinks and tuck shop stuff, but they've got loads of restaurants and stuff around the corner that's in walking distance, so they don't need to compete with those. They've got those already, so they only need to provide snacks. Whereas if you go to another place, say for example the Board Game Lounge in Worthing, or Nick's place, the Ludo Quest, perfect example. He's got such a wide variety of what he offers. So it's not simply for the niche board game market, but anyone can just come in and use it as a cafe. Again, the Ben in Chester with the cups, coffee and board games keeps it very separate. He's got the board games upstairs, he's got a few for sale downstairs, but downstairs mainly the coffee shop. So he separates it again, and it's welcome for more than one type of person, not just the board games, but a wider variety of audience. So that, I think, has also contributed to them keeping the turnover, keep things running. And ultimately they survived through lockdown. So they're the two things that really stood out to me. The final thing is obviously the layout and the colour and the way that the games are laid out. And I think Nick in the Ludo Quest, the approach that he's taken as well to laying out, earlier game, more simple games at the beginning and then more complex ones as you go further in, I think it was just genius. particularly for me, as I like smaller, simpler games. My game is more of a party type game, like Love Letter and Exploding Kittens and Monopoly Deal and all that kind of stuff. You know, they're going to be more at the front, and for me, that's perfect. Also, for the new type of person that's just getting into board games, they can see what's ready for them. They don't have to venture too far in yet. Avid gamers that are going to be a little bit more keen will take that time to explore more in store. So I just thought that was a really great example. And then again, one of the things that Fanboy 3 did really well, that Dave did really well, was the idea that you can play games and then you can get that back in store credit. Genius idea. So little things like this just really make that cafe. So in a moment, I'm going to hand over to Dave Salisbury for our existential thought of the day. But until then, I just want to mention a couple of things. So first of all, if you are a board game designer and you want a absolutely free review to reach a wider market, then do get in touch, because I love doing this. I love the community and I don't get paid for any of it. So it's absolutely free. If you want to send me a game, I'll do that for you. Just drop me a message. Aside from that, if you want to check out all the new games that are coming out, you can check out the channel. I'm constantly updating with new videos, with new games that are coming out, getting ready to launch, so you can hear about those right here before anywhere else. Aside from that, I'm going to hand over from Dave. I'll check you out next time and see you next week. Cheers.
What is your life? And if you're spending that time with other human beings, you've got to have something to do with those human beings, otherwise they get bored. How do you define it? You know, is it like the parties you go to, or the holidays you take, or you know, the Instagrammable moments that you do? Society forgot what the importance of all sitting around a table together doing a social activity actually was. Board games are a good way of doing a whole chunk of those things.